Angel Reese special at McDonald's now. Let's break it down. My favorite barbecue sauce, American cheese, crispy bacon, pickles, onions, and a sesame seed bun, of course. And don't forget the fries and a drink. Sound good? Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
At participating restaurants for a limited time.
Ampire.
Hey babies, hey babies, hey babies, hey babies. Hi everyone. Hi everyone. Happy Tuesday. Callow's back. Look, Callow's back. What do you know?
Hello there. Did you miss me?
I did. I was it's boring without you, Callow. I hate talking to myself. You know that. I can't talk to myself. I hate talking to myself.
What did you tackle yesterday? Cancel the NBA All-Star game.
Oh, we're gonna do that in a minute. We'll do that in a minute. Yeah. I saved that one for you. We'll get to that one in a minute. Let's see. RFK, that they actually built a website about it, that they want to do that.
Sure.
We went through a lot of free agency stuff like that. I don't know. Like I said, I don't like talking to myself. Anyway, all right, let's get to what's going on here. Not that I'm surprised by this, but Tee Higgins is stuck in Cincinnati. Did you see what his mom tweeted? Did you see that?
No, I didn't see that.
His mom posted. I'm not sure where. Posted something. His mother wrote, "Selfish bastards."
I mean, yes, that's how the NFL works. So she's not wrong on that one.
This is his second franchise tag, if it gets that far, which Cincinnati is now threatening to put on him if they can't get a long-term deal, and couched it by saying, we're trying to get a long-term deal with him as well. So I would just go with, let's just scratch that one off the list. And honestly, for me, who's looking at upgrades on this team, maybe I'm in the minority here, but I didn't want to pay the price to get him. And I don't know how Adam Peters and company feel about that, because I think he's a really good player, but he falls into the Ayuk category for me, where I go, I know what Jamar Chase is. Jamar Chase is different. He's a different player. This guy's really, really good. Do I want to pay him more than Terry McLaurin to be a 1A? I don't. Do I want the team to get better? Yes. Do I want them to use all the cap room? Yes, I do. I want them to get better. But this one screams to me, if we didn't have McLaurin, I'd be like, I think this is a good option. But we do. And I was never in on this. I think he's a very, very good player who's going to get an extraordinary contract that I didn't want to pay. That's where I was on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to weigh these things, right? And one of them is, yes, you pay a premium for him, but you wouldn't be trading any draft picks for him. If you got him, if it was legit free agency, not with this franchise tag stuff, obviously. I'm not trying to say trade 2 first-round picks for him. And that's just some of the price you pay when you want to get some elite talent. I'm with you. I don't think the price was exactly worth it. But when you have a rookie quarterback on one of these contracts, you do kind of, I think maybe the word here is reckless. I think you have to do a little bit of that to build the roster around him. And Higgins was a guy I was willing to do that with, but I'm not trading for him. I'm not trading for him and giving him the contract. I would have given him the contract straight up in free agency, because you could front load the deal and still be okay down the line when you got to, load the roster up a little bit. So sure. I wanted Higgins, maybe a little more than you, but not by much.
Yeah. I'll get back to us in a moment in all of this, but this is Joe Burrow's being heard here. He went on a media campaign during Radio Row, and it's continued even this week too. I heard he went on with, Pardon My Take, said the same things, that he wants their team to spend money, and he wants it specifically to show that they're going to spend money on their guys that he likes, and he's trying to protect them, and went so far as to say, I know I make a lot of money. There's a lot of ways to maneuver the money that I make, which is going to make Cincinnati really uncomfortable, because this is still an outlay. These are cap maneuverings to put another outlay of money out to other players just to make it all work. And that's the part where you test the Brown family. Will you actually do this? Because in the past, they haven't really wanted to, but he's been heard. And, those guys, I think Trey Hendrickson wants to stay. I think Tee Higgins wants to stay. I think they all want to get paid. They can thank Joe Burrow, their agent, for making this happen, because he has publicly browbeaten that team and basically said, we have a window of opportunity here. And if you don't re-sign these guys, we don't. And oh, by the way, I'm going to be really pissed about it. And who do you want if you don't want these guys? So he's been heard because they're acting as if he's been heard. Like, I thought as of 2 weeks ago, Tee Higgins was going to walk, that's what was going to end up happening. They'd sign Chase. We'll see with Hendrickson, because he's actually under contract for another year. We'll see with Hendrickson. But Higgins is going to be the odd man out. They're not going to pay everybody. He's going to walk. The team has been scared by their quarterback into not doing that. That's what I think happened here.
No, and I think you hit it right on the head. Like, we kind of ask how the Eagles are able to do all of the stuff that they do. It's because Jeffrey Lurie gives out the signing bonuses right away. Like, and they can spread it out over all this time. That's Burrow essentially going to Cincinnati ownership going, you can just make this happen by not being cheapskates, right? Like, you can actually keep this team together, and I can maneuver my money, and I heard you like making money with me, and we can start signing some of these other guys.
Yes.
You just have to put up the cash to do it, and it sounds like they are at least now willing to do it, because I bet you through the back channels, Burrow probably pretty much let it be known, if you start BSing around with this roster, I'm out. And there's no way you can really get around that either. Like, to just say, you'll have a bunch of people lining up to trade for me, and I don't have to set foot in your facility again if I don't want to. Well,
it clearly also got to the point where he did it publicly. And he's not a really loud, out there public personality. And it was very notable when he was doing it. Because he's not Micah Parsons. I'll get to him in a minute, where he's on a podcast every week saying whatever he feels, is not inhibited by his thoughts. He will tell you what he thinks about his team, everybody. That's not Burrow. Burrow shows up and does press appearances, but not very often, doesn't have his own show. Off-season's not a big media personality, doesn't seem to be tracking that way. And it was very notable that he got out in front of this publicly, because I'm going with probably privately over this past season, Chase was so pissed off he didn't get a contract in the summer before the end of his contract. He made it known, didn't show up in the summer, tried to make it hard on them, squeaky wheel, did show up, had an amazing season anyway, but was pissed the whole time, right? And Burrow's going, this is unnecessary. How are we going to win this way? This isn't the way to go about it. And, like we've talked about this a lot because the Cowboys keep doing this. Why you wouldn't get in front of contracts that you should get done anyway. They did with him. Like, why you don't get in front of those. Jamar Chase may be the best wide receiver in the NFL. Waiting longer only costs you more. That's all it does. In Higgins' case, I'll hear it out. I think he falls into the IU category for me, where I think he's a really good player, a very, very, very valuable player, but he's not Jamar Chase. He's not of this category. And I could see where Burrow's like, F around and find out if Jamar Chase isn't on this team, because if you don't want to pay him, then you really don't want anybody. Because you're not going to get anybody better than him. So I don't know why you don't want to just get this over with and sign him. It's costing you more every day you wait.
No, I mean, the Cowboys are the team that is the most guilty of this. Dak Prescott's contract was a little bit weird, so they were kind of screwed no matter when they did it. But the one we kept yelling about was CeeDee Lamb. We're like, that guy's a top 5 wide receiver. Hand him the money, so that the next person has to pay their wide receiver the next contract. Like, they waited till both Ayuk and Justin Jefferson had their deals in place, and you knew you had to give him something comparable to Jefferson. So it's the same thing here with Chase, where it's like, do you really want to keep dragging this out? You're going to have to pay him eventually. And you and I talk about this all the time. Once you just hand him the money, 2 years, it looks like a bargain anyways. Like, Terry McLaurin and DK Metcalf and that group of wide receivers, their contracts all look like bargains right now because you just get it done with and that number stays the same. Even go ask the Eagles with A.J. Brown. Brown's contract looks like a bargain already, and they only just extended him last year. So, I just don't understand why ownership in the NFL, when you're making hand over fisted money, just doesn't just get it done with the, like, bar none top 5 level of talent, guys.
Because it's an outlay. And this is the difference between some teams and others. And this is where Burrow got in front of it with the Bengals. To do all of these things, they have to have a willingness to write really big checks, and a few of them all in the same offseason. And they have to have a willingness to essentially go over the cap, which is, we're going to restructure you to make sure that and that's another big check. That restructure part of it is, we're going to give it all to you in signing bonus. It's another big check to spread it out, to make the cap lighter, to then write these other big checks to these other people. And the Eagles are open to doing this. Other teams are open to doing it, and some aren't. Some are not, or some are unwilling to do it. But it is the cost of doing business when you have a quote unquote window now. You've got to be willing to do it and put it out there. And, I think Burrow's just browbeating them into doing it. And it sounds like they are. And we'll see, right? They haven't done it yet, but they've basically lined this up where this is. And honestly, for me, in looking at how this team's going to try to build here, I can't really figure out what they're going to do yet. I keep reading all the reporting. They're going to be aggressive. They were aggressive last year. They signed a lot of guys, but they didn't sign a lot of them to these big tier contracts. Everyone hears aggressive and assumes that means they're going to go get Tee Higgins or Myles Garrett or whoever that is. And while I would assume that they're calling about Myles Garrett, when you look at the list of all the other free agents, I'm not sure what anyone means when they say aggressive. And there's a mix here of what they've done. The first year, I kind of lauded them for doing a couple really well, which was they restructured the roster. But very, very, very few of the players that they brought in here were given any kind of real long-term or any kind of real top-end money. So there was flexibility with it. It was almost like we're going to take a lot of people, bring them in here. They're not all going to work out, but we're going to be able to get out of any of it. There's not going to be a single thing that if it doesn't fit or it doesn't work out or they don't take to our new culture, we can get out of any of it. Because they had the success they had last year, because Jaden was so good, I think there's this assumption that they're actually going to go buck wild when free agency opens up. And I'm not so sure about that. One, I don't know that they really believe they want to do that, although the pressure's on because of the team in their division. Two, they already started winning fast, which would give you a reason to want to maybe get some higher end talent and pay for it. And three, they kind of have to, to stay competitive if you're being real about where the roster is moving forward. But I don't know, this goes back to when we were talking about this during the season. It was a surprise they played as well as they did. They can pretend it isn't, but it felt ahead of schedule. And now that they are, quote unquote, ahead of schedule, what are you going to do about it? So whatever they were planning or thinking about doing in year two, compiling all the draft picks, maybe making some more reasonable signings in free agency to help fill holes in the roster, I wonder if they feel pressure to do a little bit more than that because of the season that they had. And I don't know what they're going to do. Everyone's making assumptions about what they're going to do. I don't actually know what they're going to do and whether they're going to be more measured is probably the right word. They're clearly going to be active in free agency. They have cap room to work with. There are a number of players worth going after, but a lot of them are of that similar tier of the guys they got a year ago that were really good performers, but didn't cost them a ton of money. So are they going to take real swings or are they going to approach it that way again? I guess we just have to wait and see. I mean, I've seen a lot of reporting, but I haven't heard a thing from Ashburn that suggests they're about to go buck wild and write crazy checks to all these people.
Well, yeah, and it's one of the few times we actually know what Adam Peters wants to do. He wants to build through the draft. He said that out loud. That's how you build great teams, is by having successful drafts back to back to back. You get not only your actual team put together in terms of starters, but you get the depth behind them. I said this to you last year when they were going through that kind of tough 3-week stretch. The Eagles, Steelers, who's the third opponent stretch, or whatever, it was 3 hard games in 2.5 weeks, essentially, where I said, this is where I'm worried about the depth because it's just not there. You can get some starters, but we kind of knew once you get past the starters, it was going to be tough. If you're Adam Peters now and you are a very good team that, I'm looking at, the NFL's Instagram the other day, and they're 6th in the power rankings, which still doesn't feel real off of the season that they have. I get it. You want to be quote unquote aggressive, but at the same time, if you want to be great for a while, we all know how you do that. And it's through the drafts, and they don't have a plethora of draft picks at the moment either because of the moves they made last year. So I'm with you. I don't know what they're going to do, but I do go to what Adam Peters has said out loud, because this group doesn't say a lot out loud. And he has said he likes to build through the draft. And so I think in another world, in a year or two, they would have gone for that Garrett trade. But I think right now they're not in a position to do so. I think you need to be realistic with the roster and how they look top to bottom right now, because what did we talk about in the NFC Championship game, you and me? Eagles, you'll take 1 through 52 except the quarterback. Well, 1 through 52 is pretty damn important looking at the final score there, and especially what they did in the Super Bowl. So I'm privy to be somewhat aggressive, but I'm not parting with the draft picks. It's pretty much how I've landed at this point.
And like Howie Roseman maneuvers in and around the draft. Go look at his top tier draft picks over the last few years, and you'll see why they are where they are and why the window is so wide open for them. Jalen Carter, Nakobe Dean, Nolan Smith, all of those offensive linemen, they were able to replace Jason Kelce and not miss a beat on offense. They do have prominent free agent signings. A.J. Brown, who they traded for, Saquon Barkley, Zach Bond's going to end up getting a lot of money now, but was actually a cheap reserve that they had brought in at a blind spot position for them. They hadn't gotten linebacker right in a long time. All of a sudden, they found a guy who was just a special teamer in New Orleans, turned out to be a big hit for them. So they really hit a home run with that one. Quinyon Mitchell's a draft pick. Cooper DeJean is a draft pick. Like, their roster is where it is and has the window that it has because they drafted it. All of those offensive linemen were drafted. None of them were signees. They were all like, they all got second contracts. Like Jalen Hurts, Dallas Goedert, Devontae Smith, all of the defensive players outside of Zach Bond, they're all drafted players for them, with a couple of notable minor exceptions like Bryce Huff, who's probably going to play a lot more because Josh Sweat's going to be gone because he's going to go in free agency. But they built that team through the draft, really, and they accentuated it with a couple of very top-tier Pro Bowl level players at spots that they needed it. I agree. I don't think we're there like where they are. I think we could be very competitive with them anyway because we have a special quarterback, and our special quarterback lets us be competitive with everybody every single week, which is why I want to see how aggressive this team really is this free agency, because really, I went through this last week. If you really go through the list, you're not going to see a lot of names where you're going to spend a lot of money. There are a couple of very, very good top tier players. They're all 30 and above though. Like, so, like you're not going to spend crazy money on most of it. It's not like there's this array. There's talent out there to get for sure. But I think most of it falls into the category of like a year ago where they could be selective, not put a tremendous amount of term on a contract, not have top tier money, not overpay. This is what I was really impressed with last year with all of these people they brought in. None of them hamstring their cap at all. So I want to see what happens here, because I think if we're all being honest, they went farther than I think we thought they were going to go. And it does feel like the world's their oyster now to build a very competitive team. That does take money, but how much money and how much are they going to get away from whatever it appears to be their fundamentals of what they want to build because it is ahead of schedule? That's what I want to see.
It's also worth noting how the Eagles got in this position. Like, I'm sure you've seen the graphic go around a little bit, over the last week or so, where the Carson Wentz trade essentially flipped around the franchise. Like, they traded Wentz, and those picks turned into Smith, A.J. Brown, Cooper DeJean, because they maneuvered around the draft a little bit. And Jalen Carter. The Jalen Carter first rounder was them as well. Like, they potentially, looking at those four players, you could argue Brown and Carter are on the way to a Hall of Fame type of career. Like, they flipped the Carson Wentz trade into two potential Hall of Famers, maybe more depending on what the others do. But look at what they did in that it jump-started them even further than anyone thought, because they nailed all the draft picks and those picks as well. So, like, it's hard not to get a little complacent here of how the Eagles got good, too. They did have to trade a franchise quarterback, and it was the right decision. We all know it was the right decision, especially here. But they had a quarterback to flip some chips, into this roster at the moment right now. So it's hard for us to do that when we're playing catch-up the whole entire time anyways.
100%. I do think, though, because go back to where we started, which was Tee Higgins is stuck in Cincinnati. I didn't really felt like it fit to pay him $30+ million a year. Sure. There actually are a lot of receivers that are good receivers that maybe not that. He's cream of the crop, but there are good receivers that are available for a at least short-term bridge, if not a little bit more. It'll be interesting to see what the price point is because there's a lot of them. There's a glut this year. I've kind of divvied it down to two off of Higgins of ones that I have real interest in. And these two, Chris Godwin and Darius Slayton. Those are the two that really stand out to me. I think Slayton you could probably get for a pretty good, very manageable deal. I've seen him up close and personal for a few years now. He's a very effective receiver, especially down the field. He's one of those where, like, I look at him not unlike he's not Terry's level, but like, what if he had more effective quarterback play? Would he be a different player? Would he have different numbers? And Chris Godwin, to me, and this is the hardest one about him, is I don't know anything about where his like body is in recovery. That was a really bad injury he suffered in the middle of last year. They're not going to re-sign him Tampa Bay because they already signed Mike Evans and they drafted this kid Jalen McMillan, who's turned out to be very good. So they're going to let him walk. He's not 30 yet. That was a pretty bad leg injury. I would want to know a lot more without really going full bore to say, I think this is the guy that I would want to get. I need to know where he is in his recovery and when he'd be ready. Because if you're telling me he's not ready before training camp, then I'm really not that interested. But if he is projected to be fine by the time training camp rolls around, he's actually the one that stands out to me that I think won't go for the price of Higgins or maybe Amari Cooper or probably Stephon Diggs, the ones that are felt like top tier names that are up there. If he's a tick below that and you get him for a couple of years, 2 years at a, it's not going to be cheap, but it's not going to be crazy expensive rate. He's the one I actually think that would upgrade our roster significantly. And he's one of those guys, watch him play. Yep. Like when Quinn talks about dog ass competitors, he's one of them. So like him and Slayton, those are the two that I'm looking at that I've kind of whittled a very long list down to of the higher tier ones that I think I'd be very interested in bringing in here.
When you talk about guys that fit the culture, Godwin comes out right away in terms of what you want someone else to come in here and actually, contribute to the roster. He blocks downfield. He fights his guts out. Super smart, as Joe Gibbs would say. You're right. Like when we talk about the players that are fitting on with this version of this franchise's culture, Godwin is the one that jumps out to me. And I'm with you. Like, honestly, if he's still not ready, you could still kind of figure things out. I want to know how significant it is. If you can get him within the first month of the season still, I would still take that. Like, look at how far this team went with what they had at wide receiver. I'm not trying to disparage everyone not named Terry, but it was by committee for most of the year. So if you could get him, within the first couple of weeks even, I think I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, I'm assuming that, Luke McCaffrey will be back, but it's Terry, him, every free agent. So they got some serious decisions to make here, and they have to, in my opinion, go get at least one or two veteran receivers. Is that Noah Brown? Probably will depend on what his injuries were a year ago.
Right.
Is that Olamide Zaccheaus? I think so. Like, I would bring him back. That was a no-brainer to me. I would bring him back because he doesn't cost that much money, fills a lot of different roles. In a pinch, he's your punt returner. Like, I would bring him back. Like, Jamison Crowder's on the other side of 30. That's probably someone they're looking to either upgrade or move on from, I would think. De'Ami Brown, I think, might get – he's also in a very crowded pool, but might get a little more money than they're comfortable giving him. Yep. He did emerge for them, but – you could argue that just about anybody's going to emerge with Jaden Daniels as the quarterback. So I think he's going to find a different place somewhere else, but I wouldn't be surprised. So just numbers alone, they need to sign one or two free agent receivers. I think we all agree an upgrade in talent would be that. And to me, Chris Godwin is the one who really stands out to me as the one that I would pursue. And that's, again, I don't know what his physical would read. I don't know what condition he's in. And if he's not in the right condition to do something like that with, then just forget this conversation. But assuming, like every other player, he'll be fine, he'll be back, maybe by June, July, whatever, he's the one I'd have serious interest in. And Slayton had a lot of huge moments against us. He is sneaky good. He can get down the field. He's a very good professional wide receiver. What if he played on a team a little better quarterbacking? I think you might see more production into someone like that.
I want to see too. Obviously it was loud and clear last week that this fan base doesn't really want Debo, right? But it is a 1 year deal. It is a 1 year deal. Let's see what the market looks like. I think the report came out too that they might just release him too. If the market doesn't solidify, this has led me down to like a kind of like a little path here. Like, Seattle is on the same contract with DK as they are with Terry, as they are with Debo. Like, he has 1 year left on his deal. Do I see Seattle trading DK? No, but
no.
What if the market somehow comes to fruition? Like, if they wanted to hit the reset button a little bit here, like and you don't know what he's going to say either.
I'm giving a mid to late round pick for that. Like, I'm not doing anything high for that.
Sure, but I'm just saying, like, what if DK starts speaking up and going, I want a new contract, and they're going, we're not interested in that. Like, that's someone that I'm looking at too, though, because that's another guy that I think fits the culture here, like to a T, is that guy. So I'm just saying too, like, I think there's a couple people that maybe we're not even thinking of because the market might start to kind of roll a little bit, and some teams might go, we'll roll the dice with someone else. We don't want to give out these contracts again.
Yeah. All right. Before I take a break, I did mention Micah Parsons. He has gone out there to say he wants to see the Cowboys make moves. I think he's going to be sorely disappointed in that because DeMarcus Lawrence is probably going to leave, right? He's 32 now, coming off an injury-riddled season, and they're not going to pay him. I don't think he's talking about that. We seem earmarked for Osa Odigizua because he's probably not going to get a ton of money, and that would be helping the interior. And Quinn and Witt know him. And so, like, we've been pegged as, like, that's going to be his. So who exactly he wants to see them, quote unquote, make moves. I don't even know what he means by that. And I don't know at what position he's talking about. And I think he's going to end up being sorely disappointed. Like, the move that's going to happen is I think they're going to sign him. That's what I think is going to actually happen, because they had to have learned their lesson by now that if they wait till his contract runs out, that price point is just going to keep going up and up and up. He's going to get the biggest contract of any defensive player in the NFL. They might as well give it to him now and not a year from now. So if he wants to see them make moves, I think he's just talking about himself, because otherwise I think he's going to be surprised when they don't do very much at all.
I feel like Dallas is waiting for the Myles Garrett trade. Like, I know Garrett hasn't said that it's about the money. He wants to go win a Super Bowl. Whoever trades for Garrett's giving him an extension, right? I couldn't see them keeping him on that 2-year deal, or like only wanting to keep him for 2 years. Like,
no,
I feel like
they're going to immediately do it.
So I think Dallas is waiting for that deal, but they also didn't wait last year when it came to some of those other wide receivers. So I would think so, but at the same time, they learned nothing last year. So I'm not.
They should preemptively do it. Myles Garrett's the player of the year. Like, they ought to preemptively do this and beat him to the market.
You think they would, but look what they did last year. It took until the last week of preseason for them to get CD done, and then Dak was the morning of the first set of games in week 1. Like, come on, like they haven't learned from it.
Lastly, my old friend Ryan Burr, who's not even on TV anymore, but most recently for 10 years was on the Golf Channel. Okay, reported that, because he lives down in Florida, he does all that stuff down there, that the Steelers called and tried to get a trade for Trevor Lawrence. Both teams deny this to be the case. And then Trevor Lawrence went on something to clear it up and said, I love being here. I'm going to be here. I'm not going anywhere. And oh, by the way, I have a no trade clause. So he's the Brad of Jacksonville. I didn't realize this. He's the Brad of Jacksonville when he revealed that he's not going anywhere. I like Trevor. We all like Trevor. Everybody likes Trevor. So he's not going anywhere. Do I believe that happened? I love Ryan. He's a friend of mine, but like, I don't know where his source would be, unless he just knows somebody that works for the Jaguars that just kind of told him that when they were playing around out at Sawgrass, like, which is possible. That's why at least it's plausible to me that that's the case. And would they want to try to get Trevor Lawrence? That doesn't sound implausible to me either, that Tomlin would look at that and go, I think that's an upgrade for us. So that wouldn't surprise. They haven't signed Fields yet. So, like, I mean, everyone who poo-pooed it and said this isn't real, I don't know that it doesn't have some like hint of reality attached to it.
I think there's a couple of factors here that you got to unpack. One, Jacksonville doesn't have a GM, so who's taking that phone call? I don't know.
Right.
Like, and if it's Shad Khan and he's just telling people, okay, that's very plausible, right? The other thing is, come on, guys, you got to remember history. Remember 3 years ago, Ron was calling everybody, and then all the reports were like, the Commanders called the Chiefs about Patrick Mahomes, and we were like, come on. Like, did you have to say you called every team out loud? Because then we looked like idiots, and that's what ended up getting them Carson Wentz. So this could also be very as simple as the Steelers going, hey, any interest in moving that guy? And Khan could have went, absolutely not. They would have, all right, thank you very much. We'll talk to you at the draft. Like, that's all it could have been too. Like,
I kind of believe that there's a hint of reality to it. And I think I know how this happened. It was somebody who works for the Jaguars, played golf with Ryan Burr, and said, you're not going to believe it, but they called him. And then he actually tweeted it, which he was probably pissed that he did it. That's all.
Right. But like, like what trade talks are like, people have to realize sometimes it's just an inquiry. Like, this franchise called the Chiefs about Patrick Mahomes, like it
why not?
They have. Like, everyone has done this. So I'm not surprised. I will say I am a little surprised that the Steelers would call them to get a trade, but you can tell they are just desperate to figure out that quarterback position. And maybe that's somebody that Tomlin likes. I don't know.
They don't love their options. I don't blame them. I think Russ is going to be somewhere else. I think if all else fails, they'll re-sign Justin Fields. That's what I think is going to happen, but probably not on a long-term deal.
Right.
I mean, they haven't done it yet. Right? So they don't have a quarterback technically right now. So this idea, like, well, they wouldn't do that. What are you talking about? They don't have a quarterback. Of course they're calling around to figure out what's out there. All right, let me take a quick break. Very much the show is at 6:30 in Sports Capital.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
I can say to my new Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra, hey, find a keto-friendly restaurant nearby and text it to Beth and Steve. And it does, without me lifting a finger. So I can get in more squats anywhere I can. 1, 2, 3.
Will that be cash or credit?
Credit. 4.
Galaxy S25 Ultra, the AI companion that does the heavy lifting so you can do you. Get yours at Samsung.com. Compatible with select apps. Requires Google Gemini account. Results may vary based on input. Check responses for accuracy.
All right, welcome back. I did save All-Star Weekend for the NBA is broken for you. I could have talked about this yesterday, but it is a joke. And it's it's fine. It's an exhibition, but it did used to matter. And it does kind of suck that it doesn't matter. And the TNT guys went off on it. Barkley went off on it. I saw Draymond Green go on a soapbox where he said the rising stars haven't earned the right to get on the same NBA All-Star court as us, that's ridiculous. To which I would just say back to him, all bets are off because your generation of players are the reason why we're in the state that we're in right now. You all ruined this. And we've been talking about this for a long time, and you all haven't listened. Actually, you've listened. You just don't take it seriously. And that's the problem. You don't take your league seriously. Because you don't take your league seriously, we can't take it seriously. And now we're in the business of trying to fix that. Now, the NBA is not going out of business. There's no problem. The viewership is down, but the TV rights packages are still way up. And last time I checked, I don't know how this happens, but 15 to 18,000 people show up to Wizards games, even though they're 9 and 862 and don't seem to have an answer for what the end of their process is going to be, at least at this point. So it's not like this is something that people have totally tuned out of or gone away from, or it's too woke or whatever dumb things people are saying about it. But the truth is, and the reality is, that there are a lot of core people like me who love NBA basketball that did not watch this weekend because I knew what this was, and it's just not really entertaining anymore. And the reason why is because we got to this point, and the people who are named All-Stars are All-Stars in name only. It's not because they went out of their way to make the regular season matter. That's the problem, guys. Okay? You all have diminished, the players, have diminished the importance of who you play for, what the regular season means, if you even have to participate in it. And then you come to us and you say to us, watch anything. I'm sorry, we're not dogs that will eat anything you put in the bowl. Like, you have to at some point show up and take this seriously again, because the part we like about it is you all competing against one another. And you know what? You don't try enough until the playoffs roll around, which I'm in. I love. They're great. Everybody loves the NBA playoffs. You guys are amazing to watch. But these run-of-the-mill regular season games, they've become baseball games. They don't matter anymore. And half the time, the stars don't feel like they need to even show up to them anymore. So don't cry to me that your ratings are down when you all collectively don't take your sport seriously enough at this time of year.
There was also one that just like made me roll my eyes. It was like LeBron was ruled out like the hour before the game started.
An hour before.
And it was just like, come on. Like, you don't even have to.
Of all people, too, I was surprised by him.
I mean, but here, and that in lies the problem in a nutshell of like, here it is. Here's your biggest star of the game, your most global superstar of the game. And he's pulling out an hour beforehand. Like, it's not like you're playing hard in this game anyways. Like, come on, you can't just show up for a little bit. The other factor that I saw, somebody broke down the minutes of the entire broadcast, and they said there was only like 45 minutes of real basketball played, or like something, maybe a little more than that. It was over half commercials or bits, essentially.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
And they were just pretty much saying, like, I get it. You want to try this weird, tournament thing, go for it. But you're not giving us more basketball. You're giving us less, and you're giving us all this filler material. It's not what we're all tuning in for. And I would make this argument too. The best part about the All-Star game, for at least me growing up, was always the slam dunk contest. Even that broadcast has gotten so bloated. I'm like, I'll just catch whoever wins on the replay, on Twitter when it happens.
I'll watch on Twitter the highlights of Mac McClung jumping over a car.
Yeah, I'm not sitting there for 3 hours to watch you do the 3-point contest and the skills competition thing. It's not worth it to me. So they have a problem too, where they've watered down what I think is also one of the best events, because Mac McClung might be the best slam dunk contest winner, period, at this point with how well he's done. But it's not must-watch TV for me anymore, because like you said too, it's all been watered down so much, and I'm not going to sit down and watch this on a Saturday night or even a Sunday night, because I have no reason to at this point.
My favorite All-Star game weekend used to be the NBA, because just you put all these stars on the court at the same time, and there's just kind of nothing like it. And they, at least when I was growing up, took it semi-seriously.
Yeah.
In fact, to a point where they actually played the game. They they played defense on one another. They would be semi-embarrassed if one of the other stars did something to this star. And now they don't even try. And so it's rendered the game completely meaningless. And this really, to me, goes back to, and it's just a lack of understanding that you're not serving your customer. And I think Adam Silver knows this, but what's he going to do about it when collectively the players writ large are allowed to and stomp all over the competitive nature of the sport for as long as they most humanly can, until it matters, which is the playoffs. And then they show up and they play hard. And that's fun to watch as usual. Great. And I love the NBA playoffs, but the regular season is a total nothing burger now, and everybody knows it. Half the time the stars don't show up. And with LeBron the other day, I will say this for him. That sucked that he did that. It was like part and parcel to many of the different things that have occurred with this league that are ticking me off, and I think ticking a lot of fans off, and are getting people to tune out of what used to be must-watch weekends with them. But I will say this for him. He's not one of them that has pulled load management through the years. He's not. He plays every night, and when he plays, he goes. So for all the people who are like, LeBron's one of the reasons, like the poster child of the downfall of the NBA, I don't want to pin that on him. He's not the one doing that, and has not been the one doing it at all. There's a lot of things to complain about with him. I think some of his takes are absurd, right? He pulled a nepotism thing that I've never seen before, that I can't believe the Lakers went along with. They let him put a stunt to put in his son on the team. Like, it's ridiculous. There are plenty of things to complain about with him, but not this one. I actually believe his ankle was hurt. I believe him, because when he's asked to play through the years, even up to age 40, he's at least done that. And some of these other players can't even say that, really. So don't at me on LeBron is the poster child of the downfall of the NBA. No, he's not. He is the biggest star of this period of time. But I also will say, not to his defense either, right? And one other thing that exists with this league that's a problem, and it's become profiled now, is people don't like the product. They don't like the way the teams play.
Yeah.
They don't like the way the teams play. That it's a 3-point shooting contest. There's not a lot of defense. Teams don't seem to be running much of an offense anymore. It's lackluster play. So either the stars don't show up, or they're kind of half-assing it up and down the court and taking the easy way out of playing the game. I don't know what it is to do to fix this. I think the biggest issue is, and if I'm Adam Silver and the owners of the teams, I'm losing my mind about this. It's how much money do we have to pay these guys to get them to actually show up and play the games? I think that's the hardest part. And for me, as someone who has this kind of like work ethic where I will not let somebody down if they pay me money to do it. I've never understood that. That's the part of this too. Like, why do they need to incentivize you at literally every turn to literally do anything on the court? Like, it's insane to me.
Well, here's the other thing that happened that is happening too, is like the NHL figured it out pretty quick with their All-Star game, where it was like, oh, if you don't want to participate, you just have to serve a suspension on one side or the other, right? Like we've seen it in the years past where if Ovechkin doesn't want to go, he sits out the game before, the game after, whatever the suspension is at this point. The problem is in the NBA, you can half-ass it. So there's no way you can like penalize guys for not trying. As long as they show up to the court, like you can't actually show it. I know we were kind of toast when yesterday all of the kind of suggestions were flying, and it was like internally the NBA is like considering a one-on-one tournament with $1 million prize. I'm like, oh, you guys are so cooked if you're taking Twitter ideas and they're already infiltrating the office. Like, you've got to figure this out. Or, you know, like KD even said, and KD was there, but he was like, just name the 5 All-Stars in the East and West and give us a break instead of trying to like just shoehorn this whole thing in. And I was kind of like, at least KD saying the quiet part out loud, that he's just like, give me an actual break here instead of trying to make something of nothing. And maybe he's got a point to that.
I mean, maybe, but it's like you get paid $60 million a year to play in the 82 games plus one, the All-Star game. Can you just try? Like, really? It just doesn't fly for people to hear that. Like, I get the physical strife these guys go through, but like they have gamed up their own regular season in a way that to me is unacceptable. And I think it's been unacceptable to a lot of people. And when Adam Silver is saying things a couple weeks ago, like we're going to shorten the quarters, what? Like, so, okay, so now you're going to change every statistical marker to try to shorten it by 8 minutes to try to get them to try harder for the 40 they have to play. Like it's too much. Like I need some workplace pride here. Okay. I think that's what we all need here.
I mean, the greatest form of flattery is copying somebody. I would go take a look at what the NHL is doing because I didn't believe in this 4 nations thing. And
that thing's a hit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so if you're the NBA, I don't know if you got to do Team America, Team Europe, whatever you got to do. But if you did 4 different teams and you played a round robin over the course of 3 days or something like that, or maybe you just do what you did yesterday or 2 days ago and do 3 games in a row or whatever with a championship, I'd be all in on that. But I was, you know me, I was skeptical of this 4 nations thing from the get-go. Like, how much are these guys going to care? Yeah, Saturday night was like one of the best international games I've watched in years.
Insane.
It was amazing. And so if I'm the NBA, I'm going, all right, maybe we need to tap into the national pride here a little bit, put USA on the front of the jerseys to get some of these guys going a little bit, because I know Giannis is going to play hard. I know Luka is going to play hard. I know the international guys are going to be all in, and USA doesn't like to get embarrassed like that. So maybe you copy that. I don't know how you do it, but maybe you copy that a little bit.
Yep. All right, let me take a quick break. Bram Buster Show, ESPN 630, the Sports Capital.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like you know to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
I think I just won my taxes.
Yeah?
I just switched to H&R Block in about 1 minute. All I had to do was drag and drop last year's return into H&R Block, and bam, my information is automatically there.
So I don't have to go digging around for all my old papers to switch?
Nope.
Sounds like we just leveled up our tax game.
Switching to H&R Block is easy. Just drag and drop your last return. It's better with Block.
All right, welcome back. I just started reading this morning, so I haven't gotten through all of it, but I do want to probably spend a little more time tomorrow, but I'll mention it here today since it's in the Washington Post, and Barry Svrluga wrote a column where he did gets some limited commentary from Mark Lerner, principal owner of the Washington Nationals. He does not speak very often, so it's notable when he does. And this was very notable. It was newsworthy. He told Barry the for sale sign, to whatever degree it was up, is now done, and that the family is, quote, in it for the long haul. He described the reporting of it being up for sale in the first place as a little out of context, that they were looking at all options, whether it would be more partners or a full sale. They just wanted to see what was out there. They clearly didn't like any of the offers that they got. They also didn't like any of the limited ownership. I assume Ted wanted full ownership of the team because he wants to move it over to Monumental if they can get through all the Masson issues. But this is probably not music to Ted's ears. And it's probably, this goes back to a couple of years ago when I said Ted ought to go try to buy the Orioles and not try to buy the Nationals, that it actually fits more in line. He wants regional sports. He could have the Orioles. He already has the infrastructure of a network. He could make Masson better or just incorporate it into Monumental. To me, it made more sense for Ted to try to buy the Orioles when they finally went up for sale. And now he's striking out on both of the teams because clearly the Orioles have been sold, and here are the Nationals with their family saying they're in it. So, all right, how do you feel about that? That they're saying that they're in it for the long haul, because the last few years, I think, have left a lot of us, one, wondering, do they want to own the team, which is important, and two, and this is a couple off seasons in a row now, they're not very willing to spend very much these days. So I don't know where you are on all that.
Yeah, all right. One, I'm glad he finally just established we're going to be the owners now. Great. That's one thing that we haven't heard, because like David Rubenstein has talked multiple times since he's owned the Orioles, and he's only officially owned the Orioles for like a year, right?
And to Mark, to actually sit there and tell Barry this was taken a little out of context, it's because you don't speak to us.
Correct. No,
That's
absolutely
your fault for not communicating with the public.
100%. And so Rubenstein, I give him credit. He's talked 3 or 4 times since he officially started owning the team, literally about a year ago, right? Is when I think he got official control when they traded for Corbin Burns. But I'm glad he's come out and said it, that they're in it for the long haul. I like to reference our friend TalkNats all the time because they seem to have some info that other people don't get. It sounds like he gave Rizzo a budget of, here's like 50 mil. I don't know if the exact number is that, but said, spend what you need to out of that. Rizzo ended up spending about 20 million. And I don't know. I've looked at some of the free agents here. They were the top tier ones like Soto. They were never going to be in that sweepstakes. No. Realistically.
Vlad Guerrero is going to be going somewhere. They're not going to be in on that.
Probably not, right? And so then you look at the next tier of free agents, and you also look at their farm system, and I'm not making excuses here. They could have spent money, but the one that kind of irked me was the Bregman contract the other day that came out last week, where the Red Sox handed him 3 years, $120 million. That's the type of deal I want the Nats to have here. That's not a lot of money in terms of a position that they needed in third base. They still need somebody to step up and take that slot. That was one where I was screaming, what's his price? Nobody's signed him yet. And the Red Sox give him 3 for $120. That's what I want them to do. Does that person exist? I'm going to be honest here. I have tapped out because I just don't believe that they're going to sign anyone like this at this point. And so I didn't look into it in big detail. But something push needs to, push leads to shove of, are you giving Rizzo a certain amount of money, or can he do whatever he wants? Or is Rizzo also saying, this is the projection of the team, this is what we like to do right now? You need to just say it out loud, because just leaving everyone in the dark right now is actually what's irking me more. Because I'll get it if you say, hey, we want to see how some of these guys develop, then we'll strike if we think this roster is going to come through. But at the same time, you don't talk to anybody, so we don't really know what's happening. And I've told you this. Like, if I'm a Nats fan, I'm pretty pissed because they're not even telling you what the development is right here. It's pretty much just, we're going to show up down there in Navy Yard and play our hearts out, fight our guts out all season. But you're not giving me any expectations. We talked about it all season long too. The Wizards told us they were going to suck, and they suck. And like, I'm okay with that. Like, just tell me what the expectations are so I know how to react accordingly. But when you give me nothing, my assumption is you think you're going to win. And if you think that, then you and I are going to be talking about how this team's not good enough in July.
You say what you want about Ted. He does speak to the public, right? He does. Like, it's less than it used to be, but like he does periodically talk, and he takes questions. He may not like them and he bristles at them, but like at least he talks. Josh Harris did an end of season press conference, right? He didn't have to do that. He did an end of season press conference and took all the questions. Dan Snyder used to not do this. Do not speak to the public. Just stop speaking to the public altogether. It's not good for the relationship with your fan base, especially when you say, we might sell, we might not. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what you're reporting on. And then we go, well, are you not getting free agents because you're trying to sell the team? Like, what's going on here? You have to communicate with us. We're your customers. You have to communicate with us. So I'm glad that that's done, for now, whatever that means, that's done for now. And then we can move on to, okay, let's see how you manage the organization from here forward. At least we know where your priorities are now.
And there's also another side of this too. I know how you used to operate in 2010 and 11 and 12, before they ever made the playoffs for the first time. You signed free agents, you made trades, you signed Jason Worth, you traded for Gio Gonzalez. Then when the window officially opened, you made moves all the time. And it's just this stagnant that I can't stand right now at this franchise. Is they're not even really trying to, shuffle the deck essentially. And that's what is probably irking me more than anything. And don't get me wrong, James Wood and Dylan Cruz and Luis Garcia and Keibert Ruiz and all these young pitchers that were literally learning how to be pros last year are all very positive parts of this franchise at the moment. But at the same time, I'm not seeing the wheeling and dealing of the roster like I did before. And that's what troubles me, is that you just think you're going to keep wheeling out the same roster and everything's going to be okay. Like Rubenstein, by the way, just to compared to the Orioles, he did a presser, I think it was yesterday or the day before, down at spring training. And somebody asked him, hey, what's your payroll? And he said, I don't have a limit, which opened up a big conversation of like, well, why weren't they in the Soto conversations and everything? But at least everyone said, oh, well, he's going to have to sign Rushman. He's going to have to sign Gunnar Henderson. He's going to have to sign all of these guys. Like, that excuse is at least built in with them.
That's at least a good sign of they're not going to lose those guys.
Correct. Exactly.
Or try not to. Yeah.
Right. And you and I have talked about this too. When somebody says that, Cohen's the only one that's unhinged in that. I think there's an understanding. You have to operate within in terms of like a budget. Like, I'm not saying you're going to just sign everybody, but Cohen's the only one that's really unhinged like that. He's going to thread that needle of spending and not like losing a bunch of money, but there's at least that built-in excuse. The Nats are not close to signing any of their young stars really, except really CJ Abrams, if you want to breach that subject. But I think we all want to see him for one more year to make sure that he's okay. You know what I mean? So yeah, like those are two franchises in two different places as well when he said that.
All right, we'll revisit this tomorrow. Talk to you then. Brand Boston Show, ESPN 630, the Sports Capital.